Your English podcast.
Welcome back to Your English Podcast, the podcast where we break down complex ideas into simple, actionable steps that actually work in your messy, complicated, real life. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into something that affects every single one of us, every single day. Why some people seem to effortlessly crush their goals while others, maybe including you, struggle to even get started, let alone follow through. You know that feeling when you see someone posting on social media about completing their third marathon this year, or finally launching that business they've been talking about, or becoming fluent in a new language. And you're sitting there thinking, how do they do it? What's wrong with me? Well, I'm here to tell you there's nothing wrong with you. You're just missing one crucial piece of the puzzle. Have you ever wondered why your New Year's resolutions seem to evaporate faster than morning dew? Or why that friend of yours appears to effortlessly learn new skills, build habits, and achieve goals while you're still stuck in the endless cycle of planning, starting, stopping, and starting over again? Today, I'm going to share a game-changing insight about two fundamentally different approaches to achieving goals, and more importantly, how to combine both approaches to finally get the results you've been dreaming about. This isn't another productivity hack or motivation speech. This is about understanding the psychology of success and building systems that work with your brain, not against it. The universal human struggle. Let's start with something brutally honest and real. This morning, I bet many of you woke up with a mental to-do list floating around in your head. Maybe it included items like study Spanish for 30 minutes, work on that side project that's been collecting digital dust, exercise for real this time, or finally start writing that book I've been thinking about for 3 years. But here's what actually happened for most people listening to this right now. The day got busy. Your boss needed something urgently. Your kids had a crisis. Your phone buzzed with notifications. Traffic was worse than usual. The coffee maker broke. Life happened, as life always does, and suddenly it's 10 p.m. and you're lying in bed thinking, tomorrow. I'll definitely start tomorrow. Sound painfully familiar? You're absolutely not alone, and you're definitely not broken. In fact, this pattern is so universal that researchers have a name for it, the intention-action gap. It's the space between what we plan to do and what we actually do, and it affects roughly 99% of the human population. The issue isn't your willpower, despite what every self-help book has told you. It's not your motivation levels, your discipline, or your character. It's your strategy. You've been using the wrong approach, or more accurately, you've been using an incomplete approach. Today, we're going to fix that. The two fundamental paths to achievement. There are essentially two distinct ways people approach goals, and understanding this difference, really, truly understanding it at a deep level, will change everything for you. It will change how you think about progress, how you structure your days, and how you measure success. Most people unconsciously pick one approach and stick with it, wondering why they keep hitting walls. But the real secret? The most successful people in the world use both approaches simultaneously. They've cracked the code that I'm about to share with you. First, there's what I call the time-based strategy. These are the people who think in terms of input rather than output. They say things like, I'm going to write for 1 hour every morning before anyone else wakes up. Or, I'll practice guitar for 30 minutes after dinner, no matter what kind of day I've had. They focus obsessively on showing up consistently, regardless of what they actually produce during that time. Time-based thinkers are process-oriented. They believe, often correctly, that if you put in the hours consistently over time, results will inevitably follow. They're playing the long game, building systems and habits that compound over months and years. Then there's the result-based strategy. These folks are outcome-obsessed. They set concrete, measurable targets like, I want to finish writing my novel by December 31st, or I'm going to lose exactly 20 pounds by my high school reunion, or I will be conversationally fluent in Italian before my trip to Rome in 6 months. They're laser focused on specific, tangible outcomes and work backward from those goals. Result-based thinkers are incredibly driven by progress markers. They need to see clear evidence that they're moving toward their destination. Abstract concepts like getting better or making progress don't motivate them. They need numbers, milestones, and concrete achievements. Now, here's where most people go wrong, and this is crucial. They think they have to choose one approach or the other. That's the fundamental mistake that keeps people stuck in cycles of starting and stopping. Deep dive, the time-based mindset. Let me paint you a detailed picture of how time-based thinking really works by telling you about Sarah, a marketing manager from Chicago who decided she wanted to learn French. Sarah's approach was elegantly simple: 20 minutes every morning with a language learning app, right after her first cup of coffee and before checking her phone. Rain or shine, busy day or free day, sick or healthy, motivated or completely unmotivated, she did her 20 minutes. Now, here's what's fascinating about Sarah's journey. She didn't track her vocabulary growth. She didn't measure her accent improvement. She didn't even care if she felt like she was learning during those 20 minutes. Some mornings, she was barely awake and felt like she was just going through the motions. Other mornings, she was stressed about work presentations and couldn't concentrate. But she showed up anyway. For the first month, Sarah felt like nothing was happening. She couldn't see any obvious progress, and frankly, she questioned whether this approach was working. Her result-oriented friends kept asking, "How many words do you know now?" And she couldn't answer because she had no idea. But something almost magical began happening after 3 months. French words started randomly popping into her head while she was in the shower. She began unconsciously understanding fragments of French songs on the radio. When she watched French movies with subtitles, she realized she was actually following the dialogue before reading the translations. This is the hidden power of time-based thinking, and it's rooted in deep neuroscience. When you consistently expose your brain to information or practice a skill for regular intervals, you create what neurologists call spaced repetition learning. Your brain starts forming new neural pathways automatically, even when you're not consciously trying to learn. Time-based strategies also remove one of the biggest obstacles to progress: decision fatigue. Every day, your brain makes thousands of decisions, and each one depletes a little bit of your mental energy. When Sarah committed to 20 minutes every morning, she eliminated the daily decision of whether to practice French or not. She just did it, like brushing her teeth. This approach builds what psychologists call automaticity, behaviors that become so ingrained they require almost no conscious willpower to maintain. Think about how you don't have to motivate yourself to check your phone or turn on the TV. Time-based habits can become just as automatic, but directed toward your goals. But here's the shadow side of time-based thinking. It can create an illusion of progress when no real learning is happening. Have you ever spent hours studying, but couldn't remember anything afterward? That's the time-only trap. You feel productive because you put in the hours, you can check the box, you feel like you're being disciplined, but you're not actually moving forward in any meaningful way. I see this constantly with people who say they're working out, but never get stronger, people who practice instruments but never improve, or people who spend hours learning languages but can't hold basic conversations. They're confusing effort with effectiveness. Deep dive, the result-based mindset. Now let me tell you about Mark, a software engineer from Seattle who wanted to conquer his paralyzing fear of public speaking. Mark's approach was completely different from Sarah's. Instead of focusing on daily practice time, he set a crystal clear goal. Give one presentation every month at work, whether it was a team update, a project proposal, or a training session. Mark didn't care if he practiced for 5 minutes or 5 hours before each presentation. He didn't worry about daily speaking exercises or reading books about public speaking. His only focus was hitting that monthly target, one presentation every month, no exceptions. This approach gave Mark something that time-based strategies often lack: immediate, undeniable feedback. Either he gave the presentation or he didn't. Either he improved his delivery or he didn't. Either people understood his message or they didn't. No gray areas. No ambiguity. No room for self-deception. After his first presentation, which was admittedly terrible, Mark knew exactly what went wrong. He spoke too fast, didn't make eye contact, and forgot half of his key points. But instead of being discouraged, he was energized because the feedback was so clear. He knew precisely what to work on for the next presentation. By his sixth presentation, Mark was getting compliments from colleagues. By his 12th, he was being asked to present to clients. The result-based approach forced him to confront his fear directly and gave him concrete evidence of improvement. This is why result-based thinking can be incredibly powerful. It eliminates the wishy-washy nature of getting better and forces you to define success in specific, measurable terms. It also creates what psychologists call implementation intentions, if-then scenarios that make you more likely to follow through. When Mark committed to one presentation per month, his brain automatically started looking for opportunities. He noticed when meeting organizers asked for volunteers. He paid attention to project timelines that might require presentations. His goal created a filter that helped him spot relevant opportunities. Result-based strategies also tap into our fundamental human need for progress and achievement. Your brain releases dopamine, the motivation neurotransmitter, when you complete goals and see concrete results. This creates a positive feedback loop that motivates you to keep pushing forward. But result-based thinking has its own dark side. It can paralyze you with perfectionism and all-or-nothing thinking. When Mark had a particularly bad presentation one month, he froze up completely and had to cut it short. He almost gave up entirely. The pressure to hit specific targets can make you avoid taking action if you're not confident you'll succeed. I see this with people who set weight loss goals and then avoid weighing themselves when they know they've had a bad eating week. Or writers who set daily word count targets and then stop writing entirely when they fall behind. The fear of not meeting their results can actually prevent them from taking the actions that would lead to those results. The hidden psychology: why our brains crave both approaches. Let me get a bit nerdy for a moment, because understanding the psychology behind these approaches will help everything I'm teaching you stick permanently in your mind. Human beings have two distinct motivational systems running in their brains simultaneously, and this isn't pop psychology. This is based on decades of neuroscience research. The first system is what scientists call the approach system. This is driven by dopamine and is all about seeking rewards, pursuing goals, and moving toward positive outcomes. When you set a result-based goal like lose 15 pounds or learn 1,000 Spanish words, you're primarily activating this approach system. Your brain gets excited about the potential reward and generates motivation to pursue it. The second system is called the avoidance system, but that's actually a misleading name. It's not about avoiding things. It's about maintaining stability, creating security, and building sustainable patterns. When you commit to time-based practices like exercise 30 minutes daily or write 500 words every morning, you're primarily activating this system. Your brain feels safe because it knows exactly what to expect each day. Here's the crucial insight. The most successful people activate both systems simultaneously. They give their approach systems something exciting to pursue, clear results, while giving their security systems something predictable to maintain, consistent practices. This is why purely result-based goals often lead to burnout and giving up. You're running entirely on approach motivation, which is inherently unsustainable. It's like trying to sprint a marathon. Eventually, your motivational fuel runs out and you crash. Similarly, purely time-based habits can lead to stagnation and boredom. You're operating entirely on security motivation, which is stable but not particularly inspiring. You show up every day, but you lose sight of why you're showing up, and the habit becomes meaningless routine. What elite performers actually do, the integration secret. Here's what I've learned from studying high achievers across radically different fields, from Olympic athletes to best-selling authors, from successful entrepreneurs to world-class musicians. They don't choose between these strategies. They weave them together in sophisticated ways that most people never consider. Take someone like Stephen King, one of the most prolific authors in history. King has a time-based foundation. He writes every single day, usually first thing in the morning for several hours. This is his non-negotiable habit that has sustained him for decades. But layered on top of this time-based foundation, he also has result-based targets. Finish a certain number of pages each week, complete a first draft by a specific date, publish a certain number of books each year. The daily habit keeps him moving forward even when inspiration is lacking, when life gets chaotic, or when he's struggling with a particular story. The result-based targets ensure that his daily efforts are building towards something meaningful and prevent him from just going through the motions. Professional athletes provide even clearer examples. Take a tennis player like Serena Williams. She has time-based practices, train for several hours every day, practice specific drills for set time periods, maintain consistent sleep and nutrition schedules. But she also has result-based objectives. Win specific tournaments, achieve certain ranking positions, hit performance metrics in practice sessions. The time-based training builds the foundation, the conditioning, muscle memory, and consistency that allows peak performance to emerge. The result-based goals provide direction and intensity. They ensure that the daily training is focused on meaningful improvement rather than just maintenance. Business entrepreneurs follow similar patterns. They might have time-based habits like work on the business for 2 hours every morning before checking email, or make 10 sales calls every afternoon. But they also set result-based milestones like reach $10,000 in monthly revenue by the end of the quarter, or launch the new product line by Christmas. The neuroscience of habit formation and goal achievement. Let me dive deeper into what's actually happening in your brain when you use these different approaches, because understanding this will help you implement them more effectively. When you repeat a time-based behavior consistently, you're literally rewiring your brain. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new connections and strengthen existing ones based on repeated experiences. Every time Sarah practiced French for her 20 minutes, her brain strengthened the neural pathways associated with French vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar. More importantly, it also strengthened the neural pathways associated with the behavior itself. The act of sitting down with her app every morning became easier and more automatic over time. This is why time-based habits become progressively easier to maintain. What feels difficult and requires willpower in week 1 becomes nearly effortless by month 3. Your brain literally changes its structure to support the behavior. Result-based goals work through a different mechanism. They activate what neuroscientists call the goal-directed system, a network of brain regions that includes the prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate cortex, and parts of the basal ganglia. This system is responsible for planning, monitoring progress, and adjusting behavior based on outcomes. When Mark set his monthly presentation goal, his goal-directed system began working in the background, even when he wasn't consciously thinking about presentations. It noticed relevant opportunities, generated ideas for topics, and created mental rehearsals of successful presentations. But here's where it gets really interesting. These two brain systems can actually interfere with each other if they're not properly aligned. If your time-based habits aren't connected to meaningful results, your goal-directed system starts to disengage, and the habits lose their power. If your result-based goals don't have supporting daily behaviors, your habit system can't contribute its consistency and automation. The magic happens when both systems are working together toward the same outcome. Your habit system provides the steady, consistent foundation while your goal system provides the direction and intensity. Real-world implementation, the balanced method expanded. So how do you actually implement this in your real, complicated, imperfect life? Let me walk you through an expanded version of what I call the balance method, a systematic approach to combining time-based and result-based strategies. Phase 1. Foundation building. Start by choosing one specific behavior you can do every single day, but make it smaller than you think it should be. This is crucial, and most people get it wrong by starting too big. If you want to learn guitar, don't commit to practicing for an hour. Start with 10 minutes. If you want to write a book, don't aim for 1,000 words daily. Start with 200 words. If you want to get in shape, don't plan on hour-long gym sessions. Start with 15 minutes of movement. Why so small? Because you're not trying to maximize short-term progress. You're trying to build a neural pathway that will support you for months and years. A habit you can maintain for 6 months is infinitely more valuable than a habit you burn out on in 3 weeks. Your brain needs to trust that this new behavior is sustainable before it will invest energy in making it automatic. If you start too aggressively, your brain will resist because it perceives the behavior as a threat to your energy reserves and daily stability. Choose a specific time and location for this habit. This is called implementation intention in psychology research, and it dramatically increases your likelihood of following through. Instead of "I'll practice guitar daily," try "I'll practice guitar for 10 minutes immediately after breakfast in the living room." The specificity eliminates micro-decisions that can derail your habit. When breakfast is over, you don't have to decide whether to practice, when to practice, or where to practice. You just move to the living room and pick up the guitar. Phase 2. Progress tracking. Once your daily habit is established, usually after 2 to 3 weeks of consistency, add a weekly progress check-in. This is where you bring result-based thinking into the equation. The key is to measure something that's directly connected to your daily habit, but focuses on outcomes rather than just inputs. If your daily habit is practicing guitar for 10 minutes, your weekly check-in might be, "Can I play this simple song smoothly?" If your daily habit is writing 200 words, your weekly check-in might be, "How many pages have I completed this week?" Make your progress measurement simple and binary when possible. "Yes, I can play this song," or "No, I can't yet," is better than "I think I'm getting somewhat better at guitar." Clear feedback helps your brain understand whether your daily efforts are translating into real improvement. Use these weekly check-ins to adjust your daily practice, not to judge yourself. If you're not making the progress you want, ask yourself, what could I change about my daily 10 minutes to make it more effective? Maybe you need to focus on a specific technique, use a different learning resource, or practice more deliberately. Phase 3. Progressive expansion. After you've maintained your minimum daily habit for at least a month and you're seeing consistent progress in your weekly check-ins, you can gradually expand the scope of your practice. This might mean increasing the time from 10 to 15 minutes, increasing the intensity, more challenging songs or exercises, or adding complementary behaviors, listening to guitar music during commutes. The key is to expand gradually and only after the previous level has become truly automatic. Your brain can handle small increases in challenge, but dramatic jumps will often cause you to revert to old patterns. Advanced strategies, the compound effect. Once you've mastered the basic balance method, you can implement more sophisticated strategies that elite performers use. Strategy 1. Seasonal periodization. Instead of maintaining the same intensity year-round, plan for natural cycles of higher and lower intensity. Maybe you practice guitar for 10 minutes daily most of the time, but during school breaks or vacation weeks, you dedicate an hour daily to intensive practice. This prevents burnout while still allowing for periods of rapid progress. Your time-based foundation maintains continuity, while your result-based goals can be more ambitious during high-intensity periods. Strategy 2. Stack integration. Once one habit is solidly established, you can carefully add related behaviors to the same time slot. If you've successfully maintained 10 minutes of daily guitar practice, you might add 5 minutes of music theory study immediately afterward. The established habit becomes an anchor that pulls the new behavior along. This allows you to build complex skill sets without overwhelming your willpower. Strategy 3. Cross-training benefits. Look for ways your different goals can support each other. If you're learning a language and also trying to stay physically active, you might listen to podcasts in that language during walks or workouts. This creates synergy between your various time-based habits while accelerating progress toward multiple result-based goals simultaneously. A personal case study, my Spanish journey expanded. Let me share a more detailed version of my Spanish learning experience, because it illustrates how these principles work in messy, real-world conditions. When I first decided to improve my Spanish, I made every mistake in the book. I bought expensive software, planned 2-hour weekend study sessions, and set an ambitious goal to be fluent within 6 months. Sound familiar? That approach lasted exactly 3 weeks. The study sessions felt overwhelming. I kept postponing them because I was tired or busy, and I had no clear way to measure whether I was actually getting closer to fluency. Then I applied the balance method. I scaled down my time commitment to something almost embarrassingly small, 15 minutes every morning while making coffee. I chose a specific Spanish podcast for intermediate learners and committed to listening to just one episode each morning. For the result-based component, I decided that every Friday evening, I would try to write a 1-paragraph summary in Spanish of what I had learned that week. If I could write the summary without looking up more than 5 words, I considered the week successful. The first month was humbling. I understood maybe 30% of what I was hearing, and my Friday summaries were full of basic grammatical errors. But I showed up every morning with my coffee and my podcast. Month 2 was when I noticed the first breakthrough. I realized I was understanding more than I thought, not just individual words, but the flow and rhythm of the language. My Friday summaries became easier to write. By month 6, something remarkable had happened. I could follow most of the podcast episodes without effort. I started looking forward to Friday summary writing because it had become an enjoyable challenge rather than a frustrating struggle. The real test came when I traveled to Mexico City for work. I found myself having actual conversations with taxi drivers, hotel staff, and restaurant servers. Not perfect conversations, but real communication about real topics. Looking back, The magic wasn't in the 15 minutes of daily listening, though that was crucial. The magic was in how the daily habit and weekly measurement supported each other. The consistent listening built my foundation, while the weekly writing forced me to actively process and use what I was learning, common pitfalls, and how to avoid them. After coaching hundreds of people through this process, I've identified the most common mistakes that derail progress. Mistake 1. Starting too big. When people first learn about habit formation, they get excited and want to change everything at once. They commit to an hour of daily practice when 15 minutes would be more sustainable. The antidote: always start smaller than feels significant. You can always expand later, but you can't recover from burning out in week 2. Mistake 2. Measuring too frequently. People want to see progress immediately, so they check their results daily or even multiple times per day. This creates anxiety and makes normal fluctuations feel like failures. The antidote: stick to weekly measurements for most goals. Daily measurements are only appropriate for very simple, binary behaviors like, did I practice today? Mistake 3. Perfectionism. People think they need to maintain perfect consistency from day one. When they miss a day or have a bad practice session, they assume they've failed and often give up entirely. The antidote: plan for imperfection. If you maintain your habit 80% of the time, you're doing exceptionally well. Missing one day doesn't erase previous progress. Mistake 4. Ignoring celebration. People focus so intensely on what they haven't achieved yet that they never acknowledge what they have accomplished. This starves the process of positive reinforcement. The antidote: actively celebrate small wins. Keep a log of progress moments, share achievements with supportive friends, or give yourself small rewards for consistency milestones. Mistake 5. Changing systems too frequently. When progress feels slow, people assume their method isn't working and constantly switch to new approaches, apps, or strategies. The antidote: commit to any reasonable system for at least 90 days before making major changes. Most systems work if you work them consistently. Your personalized action plan. Here's exactly what I want you to do in the next 24 hours. Step 1. Choose your focus. Pick exactly one thing you want to improve. Not 3 things, not several areas of my life. One specific skill, habit, or goal. Write it down in one clear sentence. Step 2. Design your daily minimum. What's the smallest daily action that would move you toward this goal? Make it so small that you could do it even on your worst day. Write down the specific time and location where you'll do this. Step 3. Create your weekly check-in. How will you know if your daily efforts are working? Design one simple way to measure progress every Friday. Make it specific and, if possible, binary, yes/no rather than subjective ratings. Step 4. Plan for obstacles. What are the 3 most likely reasons you might skip your daily practice? For each obstacle, write down a specific if-then plan. If I'm running late in the morning, then I'll do my practice during lunch break. Step 5. Start tomorrow. Don't wait for Monday, the first of the month, or when conditions are perfect. Start with your first daily practice tomorrow, regardless of what day it is. The compound effect: why small efforts create massive results. Let me paint you a picture of what consistent small efforts look like over time, because this is where most people dramatically underestimate the power of the balance method. Imagine 2 people who want to learn piano. Person A decides to practice for 3 hours every Saturday. Person B commits to 15 minutes every single day. After 1 month, Person A has practiced for 12 hours total. Person B has practiced for 7.5 hours total. Person A feels superior because they've put in more total time. But here's what's really happening in their brains. Person A's practice sessions are so long that they often feel overwhelming. Sometimes they skip weeks because life gets busy or they don't have 3 free hours. Their brain doesn't form strong habit pathways because the behavior isn't consistent enough. Person B's brain starts to change its structure after just 2 weeks. The daily repetition creates neural pathways that make playing piano feel increasingly natural. More importantly, their brain begins to process musical information even when they're not actively practicing. After 6 months, Person A might have 40 to 50 hours of practice, assuming they maintain motivation. Person B has 45 hours of practice, but with much more consistent reinforcement. But the real difference isn't in total hours. It's in neural adaptation, skill integration, and habit strength. Person B's brain has been reshaping itself daily for 6 months, while Person A's brain has experienced periodic, intense exposure followed by long gaps. By the 1 year mark, Person B will typically be significantly more advanced, despite similar total practice time. This is the compound effect in action, small, consistent efforts that build on themselves exponentially. The identity shift, becoming the person who achieves goals. There's one final element that separates people who successfully implement the balance method from those who struggle, and it's perhaps the most important piece of all: identity. Most people approach goals from the perspective of outcomes. I want to lose weight, or I want to speak Spanish, or I want to write a book. But the most successful people approach goals from the perspective of identity. I am becoming a person who takes care of their health, or I am becoming a bilingual person, or I am becoming a writer. This might seem like a subtle semantic difference, but it's actually a profound psychological shift. When you focus on outcomes, every day you haven't reached your goal, yet feels like evidence that you're not the kind of person who achieves goals. When you focus on identity, every day you show up for your practice is evidence that you are the kind of person who achieves goals. Sarah, our French learner from earlier, didn't just want to know French. She wanted to become a person who speaks multiple languages. This identity shift made her daily 20-minute practice feel like an expression of who she was becoming, not just a task to complete. Mark didn't just want to get better at presentations. He wanted to become a confident communicator. Each monthly presentation wasn't just a goal to hit, but an opportunity to strengthen his identity as someone who shares ideas effectively. The ripple effects, how goal achievement changes everything. Here's something remarkable that happens when you successfully implement the balance method. It doesn't just help you achieve the specific goal you're working on. It fundamentally changes how you approach challenges in every area of your life. People who master this approach develop what psychologists call general self-efficacy, a deep confidence in their ability to learn new skills, overcome obstacles, and follow through on commitments. This confidence ripples out into their relationships, careers, health, and creativity. Sarah didn't just learn French. She proved to herself that she could stick to commitments and achieve long-term goals. This gave her the confidence to finally start the side business she'd been thinking about for years. Mark didn't just become better at presentations. He developed a systematic approach to skill development that he later applied to learning data analysis, improving his coding abilities, and even training for a marathon. When you demonstrate to yourself that you can combine consistency with results-focused thinking, you essentially reprogram your self-concept. You stop being someone who tries to build good habits but never sticks with them, and become someone who sets goals and achieves them systematically. Closing thoughts, the journey ahead. As we wrap up this deep dive into the psychology and practice of achievement, I want you to remember something crucial. You don't need to become a different person to succeed with this approach. You just need to become a more systematic version of yourself. The balance method works because it honors both aspects of human psychology, our need for security and predictability, and our drive for growth and achievement. It doesn't require superhuman discipline or motivation. It requires intelligent design of your daily environment and weekly feedback loops. Every expert you admire, every high achiever you follow on social media, every person whose success seems effortless from the outside, they all started exactly where you are right now. They weren't born with special talents, unlimited motivation, or perfect life circumstances. They developed systems that supported their long-term goals while keeping them moving forward every single day. You can have that too. You can be the person who actually follows through on their commitments. You can be the person whose friends ask, "How do you stay so consistent?" You can be the person who achieves goals that once seemed impossible. But it starts with understanding that success isn't about choosing between time and results, between process and outcomes, between consistency and achievement. It's about learning to use both approaches in harmony, creating a system that's both sustainable and effective. The person you want to become is waiting for you on the other side of consistent daily action combined with clear weekly progress. The only question is, are you ready to start building the bridge to get there? That's a wrap on today's extended episode of Success Simplified. If this deep dive helped you see goal achievement in a new light, please share it with someone who's been struggling to make progress on something important to them. We're all figuring this out together, and your success can inspire someone else to start their own journey. Next week, we're going even deeper into the science of building unstoppable momentum, including the specific neurochemical processes that make some habits feel effortless while others require constant willpower. You definitely won't want to miss that one. Remember, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start where you are, with what you have, using what you now know. Keep it simple, stay consistent, measure what matters, and I'll catch you next time.